This one's for the culture. Me and wifey in the room thinking of a master plan, thinking how we can influence the culture from where we stand. Knowing that our steps are ordered by the master's hand, still 10 toes down, we ain't switching up the stance. The mission of this music ain't just to make them dance, trying to tell them about the rock.
And welcome to another episode of The Bond Chronicles. I am your host, Mr. Raymond on Twitter and Mr. Bond Chronicles on Instagram, and I am blessed to be here with my host,
Mrs. Bond Chronicles on Instagram, Ms. Bond Chronicle on Twitter. I need to fix that so that it makes sense.
All right. Great. She's going to fix it. And we are The Bond Chronicles on Instagram. We are on Facebook and on YouTube. And on top of hitting another milestone, we now have 50 YouTube subscribers.
Yay! We need to get a sound box.
We do
our little sound applause.
Or a better idea is if you guys would like to contribute, we will put our Cash App there for you to contribute to us so that we can get cool sound effects and other cool things that we want to do here in time as we wait for stimulus checks or whatever else is coming to help support us through this pandemic. But yes, we've hit 50 subscribers, so that's dope. Really dope. Thank you to the podcast community. Thank you to our friends and family who have been supporting us and liking and sharing. Shout out to DJ Hayes, who was our first official guest, and he definitely helped promote as well. So thank you very much there also. So currently we are living in a crazy world.
Crazy.
And it is ever changing. We thought we were going forward, and then we went backward, and then we were going forward, and now it seems like we're going backwards. And that constant change and shift and drastic changes can impact people's minds. It can affect their mental, their emotional, their physical.
Yeah.
And not enough people talk about the impact that it has on people and what we've been going through. We see a lot of the deaths, which is a physical thing. We see a lot of the unemployment, which is more of a physical thing. But really the mental toll that all of these changes has taken on or has impacted people, I don't know if we've talked enough about. I know we've kind of shared a little bit of our journey through this time, but we wanted to take some time out and really talk about mental health.
Mental health check.
A mental health check. We're coming off the Olympics. Where Simone Biles sat out majority of the Olympics due to mental health. Naomi, Osaka has taken a step back, and other athletes as well have put down their profession because they needed to focus on themselves. And we've seen it with artists and entertainers do it historically also, and it just doesn't get talked about enough. And I don't think we as fans give it enough respect in the way that we criticize and hold these people to this ungodly standard. So I did want to kind of open it up to you and kind of talk about kind of your stance on mental health, kind of where you've been, and then I'll kind of go through my thing, and then we can get into some stats and educate our educated fans.
I guess for me, like, it's just been like, for me personally, the last 2-3 years have been a little bit of a whirlwind. I was talking to one of my cousins earlier today because I saw a post on Facebook reminded me of a time that I'd colored her hair or something like that. And it was in like 2017. And that was 4 years ago? It wasn't that long ago, but my life has completely changed from 2017 to where I'm at now. And I was like, I was like a whole different person. I mean, it is. It's like a whole different person. But it's been a lot. Just mentally, emotionally, and then you add a pandemic on top of it. So like we got married, we had the boys, I moved in. It was, craziness. And then just when I was starting to kind of feel like a regular person again, boom, the world shuts down. And it was like, okay, well, I guess I won't be going back to work when I thought I'd be going back to work. And I can be a teacher. Sure, like I can totally be a teacher. I've got all the patience in the world for that. And then just again, like going through the transition of being a single mom and all of that and what that entails and what that looks like, to transitioning to being like a full-time housewife, caretaker, like, you know, that was crazy. We were newlyweds, so we were still are figuring out the dynamics of our relationship and how things would be structured in our household and how we wanted, you know, to mush our lives together, basically. And, you know, going from a super active lifestyle, because obviously Courtney is older than the boy. So like I could leave her with my mom or, you know, whoever wanted to babysit, and I could go to work or just do more active things. I'm super extroverted, so I love people. So I was always out and about, to being shut down at home with a bunch of kids and a husband and a house to take care of. And it's like, hold the freak up. What is going on here? And then obviously at first when everything, you know, got shut down, it's like, well, are we going to be okay? Is this virus like a real thing, or is people just like tripping for no reason? And then like they're scaring you to death on the news, but you're looking at the death toll and all these people that are dying and people in the hospitals, and the hospitals are overflowing with patients and there's just death everywhere. And I'm like, well, I'm not leaving my house during all this craziness. And then, you know, you sit down and you become a scientist and you're looking at the numbers and you're looking at what one study says. And it was all just crazy. And then it's like, just when we started to get a little semblance of normalcy, I suffered a really huge loss in my family. My cousin, he passed away very suddenly. And like, that was awful. Still trying to figure out him not being here is just crazy. And that, yeah. And then like other relationships were not where I wanted them to be. Like that was a whole hot mess. And then my dad died. And so it was like even more craziness. All in the midst of us like trying to build our lives together on top of the pandemic. And so when they did finally say, hey, people can start traveling again, I could not wait to get away from like everything and really like decompress, because it was just a lot. And I know we talked, I mean, that's how this podcast started. We were talking so much here. Like, I think that within itself is what kept me in a place of like centeredness, I guess, if for lack of a better term, because it's like there's all this crazy stuff going on outside of our house. There's all these crazy things, like there's death, there's just complete calamity. But my house is okay. My kids are okay. My husband's okay. Nobody got fired. Nobody, you know, nothing bad really happened under our roof. And so that was definitely like a saving grace for me personally. And then having the ability to talk to my mom and, you know, my family members, unfortunately, like I did have family members who got COVID, but they all recovered. And I was just like, it's just an adjustment. Everything has been an adjustment in the last 2 years. And now the possibility of us shutting back down again. Like we're trying to plan another trip before this baby comes. We've got concert tickets. We've got, you know, a calendar of things. And this whole looming deadline of people getting vaccinated and when the resurgence of the flu was supposed to happen. It's just a lot to consider. Fortunately, we go to a great church. We've shouted them out a few different times here on the podcast. Victory Christian Ministries International, Apostle Tony and Cynthia Brazelton, like they taught some awesome messages throughout the pandemic and even obviously up till now. But really helping me not let the fear of everything take away my faith in what God is doing in our lives, because I think that was definitely an anchor for me, just because looking at what we were presented with on the news and what was going on outside of our household, it's like, dang, this is like Armageddon going on. And we got through relatively unscathed. So unfortunate for that.
So I would agree. I think from the outside, I would agree. I think we got through relatively unscathed. Obviously, I didn't lose my job. I kept working. There was actually a lot of wins. I joked about the stimulus checks. But the ability to work from home, being able to see the boys really grow up, really being able to foster a more in-depth relationship with Courtney, I think that helped expedite that as well. Being around her more often, her learning my schedule. Surprised when I'm here and when I'm not supposed to be here or something like that. So I definitely think there were some wins. I also think from like me and your mom, I think we got to spend a lot more time with her when she would come down, be with the boys and stuff like that, to build that relationship. But a lot of the reason I wanted to have, this conversation is a lot of people, I think you guys see us and you see other people and the things that they're dealing with. But a lot of times because of the lockdowns, we've only seen it through social media. And so you see a lot of people tell us all the time, oh, where you guys going next? What are you guys doing? You guys taking more trips? You guys, it's great, blah, 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 blah. Like the boys are growing. And that's because that's what social media provides. Even in this podcast, and for those of you who go back and look at the Instagram, like this is take 2 because of an error that occurred. But that can be frustrating. And in life, when you have setbacks, it can be frustrating. And life's hard enough. I've seen a number of memes about the greatest lie we've ever told ourselves, that we can't wait to grow up. And a lot of that is because the fantasy of growing up didn't match the reality. I just knew when I didn't have to listen to my parents anymore, my life was going to be so much greater. When I could make my own decisions and I could drive myself where I wanted to go, my life would be so much greater. And with that came a ton of responsibility. And we have a 9-year-old that's steadily learning that. And she ain't there yet, but she's 9. So she still has a lot of time. But I think you detailed a lot of what we went through, but I think there's also a lot that we maybe didn't want to talk about, and we hadn't forged a relationship in such that we knew how to communicate effectively. So,
for sure,
a lot of times things didn't get said, or when they did get said, they didn't get communicated in love or in the right tone of voice. And so that had some detriment to it. And we're people, like we deal with a lot of stuff. We're Black people. We're Black Americans in America. We dealt with the pandemic. We dealt with the shutdown. We dealt with the cancellation of plans. I'm still waiting on my Justin Bieber concert. I think I bought the tickets in 2019, maybe, and it was for the summer of 2020.
Yeah.
And it's supposed to happen in the summer of 2022. So we had vacations we had to cancel that we had booked that I needed. I'll speak for myself, because of the stresses of work and the children and the long nights when one might go to sleep but the other doesn't. And even if I'm not the one that necessarily had to get up, once I'm up, it's harder for me to go back to sleep. And then I had to get up and go to work and deal with other people and all of their issues, their family problems and their frustrations with life, because that's the role that I choose to do that allows me to provide for my family. So for me, it was just a never-ending cycle. I didn't feel like there was a break. There was no work-home balance, because while I was at work, kids would come down. While I'm at work, I'd hear the kids crying. While you were dealing with things, where you might not have felt well, then, you got to pick up the slack. But work, you also have to carry that too. And then you get off work and you want to be a dad. You want to give your kids their time and attention. You want to share and spend time with them, but that's at the expense of you getting a break. And so mentally, it never ends. And then you want to be a good husband and you want to be a good spouse. So when the kids are finally down, now you want to try and spend some quality time. But then that comes at the expense of, so when do you get your time? And I feel like there's a lot of people in this world that are dealing with that balance, and it's hard to find. And then for me, like, I have a relationship with God and I've always had one. But then where does that fit in? Are you going to get up extra early to spend the time? Because once the day starts, it's almost impossible. So it's been a lot to juggle. And then you mentioned friendships. Like, we've been isolated, and we've had different friend groups that responded to COVID very differently.
Yeah.
Some I know and I see on Instagram constantly and have traveled as much, if not a little bit more than us. And there were other people that I know for different reasons that didn't go anywhere, and they never ordered takeout, and they had to cook dinner every night. Or that we went to a vacation to a fight in Texas, and basically we weren't invited to a friend's home because their spouse wasn't there. And he said if his spouse found out, that would be bad.
Pissed. Like, he wouldn't even give us a ride to our hotel.
Yeah, he wouldn't even.
And this is no shade on him at all. Like, because people were afraid of the virus, and he's like, I mean, y'all been out here in the world, so like, but it's not going to take you that long to Uber back to your hotel, and it's just crazy.
So, and there's the unknown. Like you said, you talk about the numbers, but that's stressful. When you see numbers constantly rising and not knowing if the school year is going to be cut short, what's going to happen to your job? Are they going to lay you off? And then for the people that do stay employed, now they have to pick up the extra work. And we've gone out many nights and tried to get something quick.
And we can't get anything.
Fast food does not exist because everybody's hiring.
Yes.
And there's not enough people. And I sat in line, I think at a McDonald's one night for like 30 minutes. And the guy came out, it was a young guy. And that's what the other thing I'm saying is a lot of these people working these late nights are young people. We went to, where did we go recently? And it was like all kids. Like, we've gone to a couple of restaurants in different places, and it's a ton of kids working. So we went for our daughter's birthday party. And it was all kids.
I didn't see anybody at the facility that looked over the age of 20, like, easily. And I'm just like, where's the manager? Like, and we didn't have any issues, and they were great. But I was just wondering who is really in charge here. I was like, the kids at the front desk, like, it couldn't have been them. But the whole time we were there, I didn't see anybody who looked like they were in charge. It was just an interesting situation.
And so to that, I wanted to go over some numbers because I've always been told children are the future. And I believe children are the future. I believe the reason we've had the social momentum, even though I don't know if we've had the necessary policy change to back it, but I believe a lot of the social momentum is because of the millennial generation and the generation to follow. But in a lot of ways and in a lot of cases, those are the ones that are dealing with this mental health stress the most. These are the ones whose parents went to work, so they've had to figure a lot out on their own. Mm-hmm. They've had to make a way. They grew up in a generation of once you're 18, you got to go. Once you get to a certain age, you need to be responsible. I myself have been working for more than half of my life, and I'm only 33. So there's a lot of us like that had to figure it out. And so I went to, and I probably should have had the source for this. I think it was MHA, Mental Health Association or something along those lines. Sorry, the Mental Health America.
Mental State.
Yeah, it's Mental Health America.
Oh, okay.
So it's an organization. So if the numbers are wrong, blame them. But I went through, and I'm not going to bore you with statistics, but I'll go kind of quickly. And so basically what they did is they took a screening of 1.5 million people from January to September of 2020. So just to kind of give you an idea, that was like right before lockdown, and then the crux of lockdown when that TP was in low supply, and I was getting up at 6 o'clock in the morning sometimes to try and find toilet paper. We had some, but I like to over prepare.
You just made us sound like hoarders, and we were not hoarding toilet paper.
No. We were preparing for when we got low, and we had to buy some toilet paper that normally we would have never bought but we saw it, so we grabbed it.
We just grabbed it.
And thank God, because it lasted forever.
It lasted a long time.
Shout out to Scott's for the long-lasting toilet paper, although it was not the greatest on the tissues. But yeah, so they said in this time frame, the number of people looking for help with anxiety and depression skyrocketed. From January, and I gave you the time frame, over 300,000 people took the screen, which was a 93% increase from 2019. And over 500,000 people took the depression screen, which was a 62% increase over the 2019. So year over year, you see astronomical numbers. And so I think a lot of that has come because people have become more comfortable. People like Kevin Love, DeMar DeRozan, and I'm not even getting to Naomi, Osaka, and Simone Biles, have been more open about talking about mental health. That was, I think, a really underemphasized storyline in The Sopranos, was that Tony Soprano had a shrink. And that didn't really, I think, get the credit that it was due, because he had like panic attacks and stuff like that. I don't know if you've seen it. Shame on you. But the numbers were just up. And so they said that more people are reporting frequent thoughts of suicide and self-harm than have ever been recorded in the screening program since its launch in 2014. Since the COVID-19 pandemic began to spread rapidly in March 2020, almost 200,000 people reported frequent suicidal ideation, which was a 37% increase. And they said young people are struggling most with their mental health. And these are people that are still in school. 11 to 17-year-olds who accessed screening was 9% higher than the average in 2019. But throughout COVID pandemic, these people have been more likely than any other group to score from moderate to severe symptoms of anxiety and depression. So you think about the parents who've been laid off. You think about the parents who are working. We have a friend of ours who a bit of overtime he gets, he takes it. And the stress that has, especially in the line of work that he has. But the kids are stressed. The parents are stressed because you joked about it, but becoming a teacher sucked.
Yeah.
We tried it, or we did it again this summer, but I don't always remember how to explain how division and fractions work. I know what a fraction is, but how to explain it to a child
who doesn't have any concept of it, which is obviously teachers are trained to teach other people. So my hat's off to all parents, obviously, over this last year, just because it's been hard. And then even just kids who come from homes that aren't safe. Like, that's a huge number. Like, we don't think about all those different aspects of, this equation. But those kids, a lot of those kids who were suicidal, they were suicidal because their home life sucks. They were isolated at home, and school or whatever, was a relief, or whatever activity they were participating in. That was their escape from the crummy life that they were living. And so, like, these numbers, they sound like numbers, but when you break it down, when you think about people in your life who were going through situations, or you don't know are going through these things, like, I think it sparks to me, it's like, we're always talking about humanity, and we have to start treating each other like better. We just have to be better humans. But in this situation, like, I've also seen so much ugliness brought out in people. We had a really crazy political cycle this past year. Whether you're a Trump supporter or a Biden supporter, like, there were a lot of crazy things said of people on both sides. And then you've got this pandemic and the crisis that was presenting to people. Then you have
Gotta give me something to go off.
The Capitol, the
insurrection.
The insurrection
yes.
At the Capitol. And even now, like, we're seeing
the election was stolen.
Right. But another officer who reported that, I think it's four officers who reported, for duty to protect people at the Capitol, have now committed suicide. Not just because of, like, their memories of the situation are overwhelming, but to hear people who they protected, deny them any sort of justice. It's just all, I think, a too familiar situation that we as people find ourselves living in, where we're calling out for humanity. Let's help each other. Let's build each other up. Let's, God bless America. But as Americans and supporting people you know and love and your neighbor, like, you suck.
Right.
People suck. So it's a lot. And so when you hear these numbers, I mean, they're awful, but they're not surprising.
And I think that's the part. And the old adage is everyone's a hypocrite. And I look at, and I won't name a bunch of people's names because I don't want to trigger anyone, but there's been a ton of athletes and entertainers who have chosen to take their own lives. And almost across the board, there's this wave and this outpouring of emotion. And I'm so sorry for the family. And if they had just talked to someone, or maybe someone that says, oh, I was around and I could have done more. But a lot of times, those are the same people that are in the comments of people like DaBaby when he said what he said. And they're killing these people, like just absolutely annihilating them, and how they shouldn't be a parent, and how they're bigots, and how they just lambasting these people that they've never met. And all they know are going off is a news article of something they said. Or you can just name, and I can imagine what President Trump or President Biden's mentions look like, or when Vice President Kamala Harris, when she won, what her mentions may have looked like. But when we see suicide or someone attempts to take their life, there's this hypocritical outpouring of support. But a lot of times it's those same people that are the ones that are causing people to go to these extremes. And then when someone like Kanye smashes a camera, something's wrong with him because he didn't want
his meds. He's crazy.
But he didn't want the paparazzi in his face. Or when he's going through or breaking down because he's talking about how he wanted his daughter aborted, like, he's in a sunken place and he's getting in there canceling him, and his wife needs to divorce him, and all this crazy negativity is like, when people are out there in support, it disappears. When Britney Spears was going through everything she was going through, people just criticized her and they dogged her and they took pictures of her and said how she was crazy and everything else. And now all of a sudden, because they're learning about what her life has been like under this conservatorship, now all of a sudden she's a sympathetic figure. But when she was going through those times, people were killing her for it. The same people that are saying she should have the right, free Britney, were like, in essence, lock her up.
Reposting the videos and pictures of her shaving her head. They were commenting about how she needed somebody to take over her life when they thought that she was losing it.
Clearly without doing research on the individual.
But what she was going through at the time. Like, a lot of people don't think about, like, what that break, was a result of. It's the same thing you see with, like, Chrissy Teigen. Like, she's been on this whole cycle of apologizing for the stupid stuff that she said to people, however many years ago, but now she's older and she's different and she's changed and her perspective is different. And so people are sympathetic with her. And then, she lost a kid last year and, like, all of that. And then, somebody attacks her. So it's like, these people are upset with her because how dare you claim mental health and, try to support this when you did this 20 years ago. But then there's this whole other crowd that are just like, leave Chrissy alone. It's all so hypocritical, like you said. Like, if we had someone that looked at everything we ever said, all of the thoughts we think, all of the things we've ever tweeted, the mean comments we wrote, like, nobody is perfect. And I was telling you the other day about the situation where the girl, because I was commenting on DaBaby, and this girl called me a homophobe. And I was just like,
clearly you don't know her.
You don't know me.
Clearly.
Like, you don't know me at all. And it triggered me, one, because it immediately made me think about Rob. And it's like, how dare you?
Our audience doesn't know who Rob is.
I'm sorry, my cousin Rob, who passed away. Bro, brightest star in the room, charismatic, just outgoing, loving person. So important to me. Passes away. And he was a wonderful gay man. I loved him to death. I love his husband. They both mean so much to me. So for this stranger who was like 12 to call me a homophobe because I didn't agree with an opinion that she had on a topic that I don't think she quite understood.
She didn't.
I was just like, how I wanted to jump through the phone. I was so triggered. And I'm just like, hold up, let me stop real quick, because like I could go in and I'm saved and all of that. But it, I might need to go get dipped again or something, because it don't always activate the way that I would like for it to. So I had to put the phone down and really relax, relate, release, and let it go, because I was going to go there and, somebody could screenshot it and be like, hey, Ray, come get your girl. Like, she's going in. Because people don't know you. They're strangers hiding behind keyboards, and, they feel so entitled to their opinion. And it's cool. Everybody has an opinion. Nobody's opinion is right, but everybody has an opinion. And you get these people who are so firm on their opinion. So it doesn't matter if there's any truth in what you're saying in your opinion. They don't care about what your viewpoint is from a situation. They just know that your opinion doesn't agree or match theirs. And so they attack you. And not only do they attack you, they get flagrant. And I've seen people go back and forth on, the socials, but because I live in the comments, I look at the post, and I'm like, oh, this is gonna have some good comments.
You can usually tell.
And I'll just go and I'll watch people insulting folks that they don't even know. And what would you say? You're a bad dad. You see one picture of me with my kid on my Instagram feed, and so you're gonna go and attack the type of parent I am? Or just, even taking it a step further, wishing ill will on my children because you don't agree with my opinion on social media because it means so much. And we're regular people. So for celebrities to have standpoints and opinions or anything and see all the garbage that people mention them in, I can't even imagine how that affects their mental state, because you don't want to look at it. But at some point it's look at all these notifications. Then this person hates my guts. This person hates my guts. There's thousands of people who hate me.
It's a tough way to make a living, as they say. And I think for a long time it's been, especially with entertainers, well, we pay your salary.
Mm-hmm.
So if I pay to go to a basketball game or a sporting event, I can shout F you. I can disrespect. And we saw as soon as they let people back into the basketball games on the playoffs, people were pouring popcorn on Russ West. They were attacking John Morant's family and saying all kind of derogatory stuff towards him.
And Kyrie Irving had his situation.
Kyrie Irving had his situation. They tried to spit on Trae Young. That's stuff that not only do we have to process, but in the moment, in the height of competition, they have to say, no, I can't respond in a certain type of way. Because if I run or test you, you're going to sue me. And
that's
it's crazy.
point.
You can throw a water bottle as such, or a cup of water or a cup of ice at a human being at their job. And if they respond, you sue them.
Because they're wrong.
And just, there's been, especially in other countries, and we won't go outside of America too much, but they've had to cancel games because of the racial chants that the home fans of the team playing are chanting. That's nuts. We were talking about the England players, and they
young black men,
and what they accomplished and helped their team accomplish, get farther than maybe they've ever gotten. But because of a moment where it's a percentage and they did miss, but they crucified these gentlemen. And you hear how they talk about LeBron and talked about KD and all the great names and verbs and things that they've used and adjectives for him leaving and going to play with Golden State. Like, these are people with children and with families, and the mental aspect is an afterthought too often, and it shouldn't be that way. And specifically with us, and I think that's a part of this country's history, is they're trying to eradicate and erase the history of this country and the racist tendencies. Is, yeah, they talk about slavery from a physical aspect and the beatings and the castrations and the amputations and the hangings and the lynchings. But rarely is it discussed of the mental aspect and what the toll that takes on the children. And we were watching
the burning of Tulsa.
No, well, yeah, that too. We've watched a bunch, but the Brutes thing on HBO.
Oh, yeah.
They Are the Brutes or something. I if you could look it up. But they talked about, or they didn't talk about, they showed a situation where a older member, an error was made. And so they made an example out of one of the slaves and exterminate all the brutes. And basically what they did was they took a young child and they executed his father right in front of him. And basically told him, now you clean it up. He had to clean up his dead father. Now, physically, nothing really happened to that child. But I can only imagine mentally the potential nightmares that kid faced, and the anger and the fury and who knows what could have come from that. The mental aspect of the raping and pillaging of your children, and you having to have little to no say in that, and how that carries from generation to generation.
It's not even little to no say. There was no say. You just had to grin and bear it. Grit your teeth and bear it. Like, and, you know, I haven't been to the African American History Museum in DC, mostly because, like, I want to go and I want to be prepared for, like, how in depth everything is. But to my understanding, you can't. And it's like, we watch these documentaries, we watch the news. And so even during this whole pandemic, we had civil unrest. And it wasn't new civil unrest. It wasn't, you know, a new story. It's the same story, just happening again and again and again with different people. I watched a documentary about Latasha Harlins, and she was a young Black woman killed in a liquor store, a convenience store owned by an Asian woman in LA around the same time as Rodney King. And then the Watts riots happened. And a lot of people don't know that was one of the reasons why it happened. But then, you know, the video of Tamir Rice getting shot, the video of Philando Castile getting shot, like, all these things, we see it all on social media. We see it on the news. We see it in all these different places where we're just trying to go get information. But it's still, there's so many reminders of where we really are as a country. And that it all just replays in your head, because once you see it, it's not just going to disappear. And like you said, you know, we had a conversation. It's just like, our boys are beautiful. Courtney's beautiful. But at what point in time do they stop being beautiful and cute and we love them and, oh, let me play with them, to those Black boys, they're dangerous. Let me cross the street. Let me get away. Let me call the police on them because I don't like the way that they look. Like, that's a reality. That's a conversation that, you know, unfortunately, we will have to have with our kids one day. Our, you know, friends, we have friends with kids who are sons who are older, and these are conversations that they have to have with their kids. And so you compile all of that of, you know, the Black experience in America with just everything that, all the other mess that's shoved down our throats, you know, and the numbers speak for themselves. Mental health is a problem. It's a thing that we like just kind of graze over when you don't really want to take ownership of it. Mm-hmm. But whenever there's someone who is popular, or, you know, it's the wave to ride, people are in support but in everyday situations, everyone is guilty of doing something that puts someone else's mental health in danger. And I think that is something that we as all people can work on.
100%. And one of the final takeaways of the article, of the research that they did was naturally, as we talked about, anxiety, depression, suicide is up for everyone. But it was very clear there were notable differences for Black or African Americans who have had the highest average percent change over time for anxiety and depression. And I've been the pro man guy, but a lot of times it's not that I'm pro man. I'm pro Black man, because for too often that segment of man has been an afterthought. And a lot of the burden has been physical, but a lot of it's mental, and a lot of it's never been discussed. I can't think of a conversation I've ever had with, definitely not my dad, but any real male mentor about my mental health. Like, I've been through a number of traumatic situations. I've never sat down and trusted, one, the person I was talking to, but two, felt comfortable enough to really share the things I've dealt with. And as I've talked to other Black men, some 40, 50, 60 years old, they've never had that.
In the same boat, basically.
Yeah. You said you're in the same boat?
No.
Okay. But yeah, and it's a situation where, one, you don't even know how to start or where to start the conversation. And the idea of going to see a shrink or a therapist or a psychiatrist, that was for the weak.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's for people that can't cut it. That's for people that can't make it. That's for people who are soft. And a real man will be able to figure it out on his own. A real man will get himself out the mud. A real man will suck it up. Men don't cry. You just overcome. You figure it out. And that has crippled, I believe, Black culture for a long time. And I believe we're getting to a better place where someone who's the greatest at what they do, Simone Biles, said on the greatest stage where she had an opportunity to dominate and make history in a way that has never been done before, she said, I'm out. And she took the necessary break for her. And 100% respect and shout out to her for that. I can't imagine that was an easy decision, especially in a team sport, where now all of a sudden you're a bad teammate and you're selfish and you're self-centered and you only care about yourself and you can't compartmentalize. And it's just unfortunate and disappointing that has been the narrative. But when Naomi Osaka first walked away from the French Open, the officials at Wimbledon, they killed her.
They killed her. And it's just
the
comments and everything. I don't want you to lose your point. Just reading what people had to say. You've got mental health issues, you have anxiety, but you're making millions of dollars to play a game. And it's like, how dare you say that to somebody? Like, at the end of the day, regardless of what you do as a profession, what your, level of life is, where you are in life, you're a person, period. And the same way that you champion mental health for regular people is the same way you should champion mental health for people who seemingly have everything. Because we see, like you said earlier, there are entertainers, sports figures, political character. Who was it? Anthony Bourdain. When he killed himself, people were in so much shock because of who he was. They couldn't believe he would commit suicide. But then that documentary came out just because he wasn't happy, and so people to get so upset for some Naomi to walk away from just not wanting to do the press,
right? Because
it gave her that much anxiety.
Which, when you really think about it, is insane. You've bust your butt your entire life to train for a fight or for said match or said game or said moment. And you failed in that moment. You came up short. And now I have to go answer to a bunch of people why I failed.
And they can't even do what I can do.
They couldn't
Let's just start
dream
there.
about doing what I did on the level that I do it.
Yeah.
But now I have to justify and explain to them why I shot 5 for 20 in the playoffs, why I had X amount of unforced errors. Like, that's insane. Imagine you had a bad day at work and then you come home and you got a live stream and people are asking you questions about how miserable your day was.
Mm-hmm.
Like, nobody wants to do that. Not to mention, I don't get to go out and eat dinner with my friends. I don't get to go out and eat dinner with my family. I don't get to run to the store and just breathe.
Be normal.
There's nowhere for me to go because everybody wants a picture. Everyone wants an autograph. Most of them don't want it to keep it. They just want to sell it and profit off of it. And I got to give it. And if I don't, then I'm on TMZ. If you all in my face and I push you away, I remember Floyd Mayweather got sued by like somebody 6'4", a 300-pound bodyguard or something to that effect because he put his finger in their face and pushed them away because they got too close. Like, for those of you who don't know Floyd Mayweather, he's a great fighter, but the man's like 5'6". He's fought at 147 pounds his whole life. But the evidence was there was redness on the face of the victim. And it's just kind of wild, the extent that we go through to punish these people because, and I can relate because I've bet on some people, Ben Simmons, and I maybe it's not the time to joke about it, but he's been getting crushed.
He has. It's been so bad.
And he played awful. Now, and I'm not saying that you can't critique someone's game. Like, that's a job you sign up for. But when you start questioning their manhood or when you start belittling them and, you know, they need to go play in another country and that, like, it goes too far. And these are a lot of times, these are young people.
Yes.
These are 18, 19, 20-year-old. Kwame Brown was 18 years old when he got into the NBA and he was playing with grown men. And when these people fail after 2 to 3 years, they're still 20, 21-year-old people that have to relive the rest of their lives. And all that they know is that they were a failure when really they were one of the greatest of greats to even get that opportunity. I saw something recently where a football publication was talking about the Hall of Fame game, and he said basically it was dumpster fire, it was trash, they shouldn't have it, they should throw it away. And someone else said, some of these people that are playing this game have worked their entire life for this opportunity. Mm-hmm. And for you to belittle it as this is insensitive and it's nuts. Like, we need to do a better job of putting ourselves in other people's mindsets or even just being humane in our critiques and criticism of people.
I think a lot of it comes from perspective, though. Like, we see, you know, however many football players that get drafted every year. Then we see all these other famous football players. We see the famous basketball players. But to really put it into perspective, like, there are 12 basketball players, right? Like 12.
On a team?
Yeah.
Yeah.
12 total basketball players on a team. All of the teams in the NBA. There are how many thousands of students playing basketball for college? How many thousands of kids playing in AAU who dream, they work their entire lives so hard just to even get a slim chance of maybe possibly playing at the greatest platform that there can be in that profession. And again, 12 players on each team. And if you are so lucky to get drafted, it's great. You get to play, maybe, because you're a rookie.
Maybe.
But you might go to a squad that's already got a really great full lineup. And so you get to ride the bench for a year. But what happens the next year? A whole new rookie class comes in. And some of them might be more hungry than you are. Some of them might be ready to do whatever it takes to get 5 minutes on the floor to show what they can do. And you finally get your 2 seconds and you brick a couple balls, you miss some free throws, you go and you look at your Twitter feed from fans of your team and they're killing you. You're 20 years old, 19, 20 years old. You signed a multi-million-dollar contract, but you've got all these people telling you how much of a failure you are at life because you had a bad game on the very first time you ever even got to touch the professional floor. And people so take for granted like how really 1 in a million it is to even get to that platform to begin with. We look at the Beyoncés and the Justin Biebers and all these famous entertainers thinking like, yeah, anybody can be famous now. You just get on TikTok, get on YouTube, go viral, and boom, you're a millionaire. But in reality, that's not how it works.
Not at all.
It's not how it works. You can be watching, what was it? JBP, the Joe Budden podcast. There's a different level. There's different levels of famousness and, notoriousness. Like, yeah, you might be super famous on YouTube, but if you go to a room full of actual millionaires, they have no idea who you are. Your followers and subscribers on YouTube are super familiar with you, but depending on what room you're in, you're a nobody. And so to hear these same people who in one breath support you and are so happy for you, but then you make one mistake, whatever said mistake may be, and now like you're the scum of the earth. Like I don't even know if people can imagine what that feels like. That kind of roller coaster, emotional roller coaster feels like on an everyday basis. And people suck.
Sadly, people do. And there's been scientific studies on, when you get a like, what that does
the endorphins.
The endorphins and mentally. So naturally, getting dislikes or comments and reading people criticizing you is tough. And so we just want to take the time, kind of share where we come from, what we've been through. It has not been easy. It's been worth it. I will say it's been worth it. I've really enjoyed this. Our Kobe Bryant episode 24. We will have another one coming soon as well. So, yeah, just
everything
take the time.
On social media ain't real, y'all.
It's definitely not. Take the time for yourself. People, I've seen the meme a bunch of times about the job and how quickly they will replace you.
But they will.
They will.
That's the reality.
They will not think twice. They will not bat an eye. Take the time that you have. Take your sick leave. Use your vacation.
Take a break from toxic family and friends. Like that's something that's not talked about a whole lot. Like if, people aren't good for you and they aren't good for you, there's no excuses for them in your life.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just gotta.
Yeah. Sometimes you do got to be selfish and look out for yourself, because when you're gone, people are just going to move on. And it sucks to say that, but that's the reality. So hopefully each and every one of you will take some time for yourself, get yourself some coffee, get yourself a nice dessert, get yourself a sandwich or a steak or whatever it is that makes you happy, and continue to live your life. And as we always say here on our outro, in life things happen. You have the power to choose what you do. Choose wisely and always bet on you. Peace.